In Manhattan, a skyscraper on stilts above a church at 53rd and Lexington. It's the Citicorp Center. You've probably heard about it, walked past it, worked near it, or you're one of the 24 million people who watched Veritasium tell its story. A structural flaw that nearly brought it down. A student's phone call, secret welders, a 400-ton counterweight absorbing the building's sway. What that story never had room for was the other building. A different city, the same kind of crisis, the same kind of secret fix, also rebuilt from the inside while nobody was watching, also sealed from the public, and it came first. 200 Clarendon Street, Back Bay, Boston. Stand at the edge of Copley Square on a clear afternoon and look up. 60 stories of blue-tinted mirror glass rising 790 feet above the plaza. That is tall enough that a panel of glass falling from the upper floors takes nearly 7 seconds to reach the street below. On the right afternoon, the building disappears entirely into the sky. What you see instead is a perfect reflection of everything around it: the street, the clouds, and directly across the square, Trinity Church. A Romanesque landmark completed in 1877. Stone arches, a copper roof that has been slowly turning green for over a century. Two buildings from completely different eras, sharing the same square, staring at each other across the plaza. Architect Henry Cobb put them across from each other on purpose. Not a rectangle, a parallelogram. Two narrow ends pointing northeast and southwest, two broad mirror glass faces turned directly toward the square. The curtain wall, 10,344 individual panes of blue-tinted reflective glass. No visible frame from street level, the entire surface reading as one unbroken sheet of sky. When it was completed in 1976, it surpassed the Prudential Tower to become the tallest building in New England, a title it still holds today. At the time of its construction, this was Boston's most ambitious landmark, a statement that Boston belonged in the same conversation as New York and Chicago. The same geometry that made it beautiful was the geometry that almost ended it. Here is what this video is going to establish. 4 things in order. 1. The engineer who designed Citicorp had already installed his solution at a building in Boston, solving a structural crisis he was bound by oath not to discuss publicly. He brought the same technology to Citicorp. Same man, same fix, 2 buildings, 2 secrets. 2. The Hancock Tower had 2 separate simultaneous structural failures. The glass was the one Boston saw. The second failure was never officially disclosed to the public. 3. The Hancock Tower's structural crisis and its solution were kept secret before Citicorp's own flaw was even discovered. The same engineer, the same technology, already used, already sealed. 4. While Boston watched the glass come down and the plywood come off, a completely different operation was happening inside the building at night, one the city knew nothing about and was never officially told. Same engineer, same technology, 2 buildings, 2 cities, 2 crises. One story was told to millions. This is the other one. The first failure. Glass installation began in 1972. Almost immediately, something started failing. Each pane was a double-layer unit with 2 sheets of glass sealed at the edges with lead solder. The outer sheet was reflective and dark. The inner sheet was clear and softer. Boston's temperature doesn't stay still. It swings hard between seasons, between morning and afternoon, between sun and shadow on the same wall in the same hour. The 2 sheets wanted to expand and contract at different rates. The lead solder wouldn't flex, so instead of absorbing the stress, it transferred every bit of it directly into the inner pane. Hairline cracks formed at the edges, then spread inward. When a crack reached the point of no return, the inner sheet shattered and the outer pane, 500 pounds, 4 feet wide, 11 feet tall, separated from the building and fell onto Copley Square, onto the sidewalk, onto the street below. On the night of January 20th, 1973, a winter storm brought 75-mile-per-hour winds to downtown Boston. The cracks that had been quietly spreading for months reached critical length across the upper floors simultaneously. Over 65 panes fell from the building in a single event. Binocular-equipped watchmen were stationed in the square to shout warnings the moment glass moved. The stained glass windows in Trinity Church, the very building Cobb had designed the tower to reflect, cracked from shards flying across the plaza. The building designed to honor the church was destroying it. At the peak of the crisis, plywood replaced nearly a third of every pane on the building. The Boston Globe named it Plywood Palace, and the nickname never left. Copley Square was barricaded on windy days. Police monitored a wind station bolted to the roof, and inside closed meetings, Hancock executives told their insurers something they would never say publicly, that they could not guarantee the building would survive a major storm. The whole city was watching the plywood. Nobody was watching what the engineers had quietly found inside the structure beneath it. With the glass replacement underway and the building in its final construction phase ahead of completion in 1976, architect Henry Cobb reached out to Bruno Thurlemann, a structural engineer from ETH Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. The Boston Globe would later describe Thurlemann as the world's foremost authority on high-rise steel frame buildings. Cobb's call to Zurich was one of the most consequential in American architectural history. Thurlemann's first finding was torsional oscillation. The parallelogram floor plan, combined with how stiffness was distributed through the frame, made the building want to twist in the wind rather than sway cleanly. Occupants on the upper floors were already reporting it, a rotating, stomach-dropping sensation in moderate wind that no interior renovation was ever going to solve. That was finding number 1. Finding number 2 was different in a way that changed the entire conversation. Under the right wind loading, a severe nor'easter or a hurricane tracking up the New England coast, the building had a structural mode in which it could fall over in one piece, not crumple from the top, not collapse floor by floor, but rotate about its narrow edge and tip, like a book falling off a shelf, onto everything below it. Citicorp could have collapsed. The Hancock Tower could have fallen over. William Lemessurier, the structural engineer whose name would later appear on the Citicorp drawings, reviewed Thurlemann's findings and confirmed every word of them. The building was open. People were working inside it every day. Nobody outside that room was told. The people who knew were sworn to silence before the meeting ended. There was no student who spotted this one. No outside voice raised the alarm. The answer came from a Swiss engineer who flew in, ran the numbers, and then made sure the numbers stayed in that room. 2 operations ran simultaneously. One the city watched, one the city never saw. On the outside, the glass replacement continued, plywood coming down, new tempered single-pane glass going up in its place, panel by panel. That was the story the city was watching. The invisible operation happened at night. While tenants worked in the building during the day, crews returned after hours and welded 1,650 tons of diagonal steel bracing into the structural spine of the tower, floor by floor, from the inside. $5 million of steel added to a building that was already standing and full of people. The workers upstairs the next morning had no idea what had been done below them. The workers the morning after had no idea either. The building that opened in 1976 was not the building Henry Cobb had designed. On the 58th floor, 2 tuned mass dampers were installed, each one a steel box 17 feet square, 3 feet high, packed with lead, weighing 275 tons, each sitting on a thin film of oil on a polished steel plate, connected to the building's frame through springs and shock absorbers. When the tower moves, the masses lag behind, then the springs pull back and the oscillation dampens. 2 units because the building twists as well as sways, one to resist each direction. Veritasium built an extraordinary video around the Citicorp story, and they told it brilliantly. But the peer-reviewed record tells a different timeline. The Hancock Tower's dampers were completed in 1975. Citicorp's were completed in 1976. Boston was first to install. The technology that changed skyscraper engineering was already running here, in secret, inside an occupied building, before New York had heard of it. When the work was finished, the building looked exactly the same from the outside. The interior looked the same to anyone who didn't know what to look for. The structural bones had been completely rebuilt in secret, inside an occupied building, while the city watched a different story play out on the facade. Most of the people who worked there never found out any of it. The legal settlement came without headlines. Trinity Church had won a $4.1 million jury verdict against John Hancock for foundation damage caused by excavation, a figure that, with interest accumulating since the church filed suit in 1975, had grown beyond $11 million by the time it resolved. The broader structural case, John Hancock, I.M. Pei & Partners, glass manufacturer Libby Owens Ford, and Le Mesurier Associates, was resolved out of court and sealed. The tipping risk, the steel, the nights of welding inside an occupied tower, none of it entered the public record. The documents remain sealed to this day. Citicorp's story survived because a journalist named Joe Morgenstern published it in the New Yorker in 1995, 17 years after the fact. He tracked down Le Mesurier, got him talking, and the story reached the world. The Hancock crisis had no Morgenstern. It had a sealed court order and a building that looked fine from the outside. The same pattern that played out in New York, secret floor, secret retrofit, secret settlement, had already played out in Boston first. One story reached the New Yorker and then 24 million viewers. The other has a sealed court document and a building most people think they already understand. Tuned mass dampers are now standard in super tall construction worldwide. Taipei 101 hangs a 616 metric ton steel pendulum between its 87th and 92nd floors. The Shanghai Tower uses them. The technology keeping those buildings standing through typhoons and earthquakes was first developed in secret in an occupied tower in Boston, while the city outside was entirely distracted by plywood. The American Institute of Architects gave the Hancock Tower its 25-year award in 2011, a quiet acknowledgement from the profession that the building had finally become exactly what it was always supposed to be. Every Bostonian under 40 has only ever known it as the mirror in the sky, the building that catches Trinity Church in its glass and holds it there in the afternoon light like nothing between them ever happened. A legal decision made in secret, managed to survive billion-dollar lawsuits, a structural crisis that could have toppled a city block, and decades of public silence. The building is still standing. The documents are still sealed, and the origin story of one of the most important technologies in modern skyscraper construction was told to millions of people with the wrong city. The tuned mass damper is in almost every super tall built after 1977. The solution Boston developed in secret is now structural standard worldwide. The question worth sitting with is why it took another 3 years and another secret crisis in New York before anyone wrote it down. Subscribe to Megabuilds. And if you think the Citicorp story would have played out differently if Boston's had been made public, say so in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.